Hi English 10 Honors! Hopefully by now you have selected a theme from your novel that you have connected to poems and short stories. Next, you are going to locate literary criticism that will support the thematic connections and assertions that you will be writing about. As a quick reminder, literary criticism is writing from literary experts that analyzes, interprets, and evaluates works of literature. You will quote literary criticism to strengthen the arguments you make in your paper, just like you would quote an expert from NASA to strengthen a paper you are writing about space exploration. Your goal today is to find at least 2 criticisms that you feel you can use when writing your paper. First, get your research paper sources chart open and get to the Library Honors English 10 Pathfinder. There are 3 main places where you can find literary criticisms. First, pull up the chapter from Novels for Students for your novel. You can find this on the Novels for Students index. Scroll to find your title, or use Ctrl F on your keyboard to bring up a search window. Simply click on the name of your novel and you will find the PDF scan of your chapter from the set. Each chapter contains information about the author, characters, a few of the themes in the novel, historical context, and finally, there is an official section on criticisms. It will be called Criticism or Critical Overview. And in it are a collection of writings about the book from various experts. The expert's name is listed first, and a brief statement about the focus of their criticism. When you see another italicized name, that is the start of a different critical essay. Each chapter of Novels for Students will have at least 3 critical essays. And I recommend skimming through all of them. The main focus of the criticism might not be exactly what you're writing about, but you may be able to pull some information for your paper. For example, the primary focus of this criticism is about patterns in Wuthering Heights, which is not what I'm writing about. But relationships is one of the patterns explored by the expert. And there is some information here about Catherine and Heathcliff being soulmates and the effect that Heathcliff's departure had on Catherine, and I may be able to use some of this. When adding a criticism to your research paper sources chart from Novels for Students, make sure to note the page that the information is contained on and the author of that criticism. This will help you when you create your Works Cited page. The second place to locate criticism is in the Literature Resource Center. This database has a lot of criticism for poems, short stories, and novels, and you will need a Jeffco Public Library card login to access it. If you don't have a library card, you can use one of my generic accounts listed here. Once you are logged into the database, start with your novel. When I type in Wuthering Heights, I am told there are 1,002 criticisms. But that's not entirely accurate. I need to apply some filters to make my results both more accurate and more manageable. When you get lots and lots of results, make sure you apply the name of work filter so you get critical essays that focus specifically on your book, not just a critical essay that may mention your book in passing. When I apply the name of work filter, that brings things down to 52 results. That's still a lot, so I'm going to filter for document type next, and I'm going to select critical essays and articles. Now I have a much smaller list of results. I will scroll through my results and look for titles that hint that the author of the criticism is writing about the theme I'm exploring in my paper, which for me is love. And once I scroll a little bit, I quickly get a couple of very obvious matches. If I didn't get an obvious match by skimming through titles, I would start opening criticisms and skim through them to see if the author ventured into a discussion of my theme somewhere in their essay. One of the things you're going to love most about the database is that you can open an article, and if you decide you want to use it, simply click the Export to Google Drive option at the top or bottom of the article, and the article will appear in your Google Drive. Make sure you double check it the first time you use it. Sometimes I have to click the Drive button twice. The first time authenticates my accounts, and the second time actually delivers the article. But once the article arrives in my drive, it has the full text of the criticism, and at the very bottom, the source MLA citation, which will make my Works Cited page a breeze. Okay, let me go back to the Literature Resource Center and see if I can find some criticism about my poems and short stories. You should be able to find criticism about both, but you may need to alter your searching strategy slightly. So let me start with my poem, which is Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. And I do get a lot of results, but if I try to apply the name of work filter, that's going to cut my results down to 1. This particular filter does not work as well for criticisms on poems because many experts focus on a poet rather than a specific poem, and so they'll look at a various collection of that author's poems in one essay. So I'm not going to apply that filter. I will apply the document type filter to only look at critical essays. Now it is just a game of skimming and scrolling. I'm going to open various articles and skim through them. Notice how my search term is highlighted in orange by the database, which makes it really easy for me to locate sections of this criticism that are talking about Annabel Lee. That's a very nice feature. I had to go through several different critical essays on Annabel Lee and Poe's poetry, but finally, in this critical essay on Poe's use of symbolism, I found a very useful section on the heart-rendering sorrow at the loss of love that occurred in Annabel Lee, and this I definitely think I might be able to use in my paper. So I will add it to my chart. You will need to be similarly persistent when looking up criticism for your short story. I'm going to highlight the title of my short story, search for it in the Literature Resource Center. I only get 24 results at first, so I'm not going to do the name of work filter. I will just filter for document type. And obviously I will start with these criticisms at the top that focus specifically on my short story, but I may need to skim through some of the other critical essays that discuss numerous short stories by this author. The third and final place to look for criticisms is in the library catalog. I know you're not at school right now, but you can still request library books, and we have a ton of library books with great critical essays. If searching for criticism on your novel, enter its title. Anything with fiction in the call number means that it is the actual novel in the fiction section. But anything that has an 800 in the call number is a collection of critical essays. That's right, this is an entire book of critical essays. If you're willing to come pick up this book, choose Login. Make sure you select the option to log in with your Jeffco account and sign in with your student ID number and password, just like you do when you sign into Clever. Once you're logged in, you will be able to place the book on hold. We will email you when your book is ready to be picked up via contactless pickup at the loop in front of the school. We also have some other places in the library to locate criticisms for novels, poems, and short stories. So if you've exhausted the resources that I have outlined, you can email me a summary of where you have already looked and what you are looking for. I can pull a few books for you to look through if you are willing to come to the school to pick them up at the front circle. Finally, citing criticisms can be very tricky. EasyBib definitely does not know how to do it correctly. So I've linked up a citation document here that specifically targets how to cite your criticisms depending on where they came from. So make sure to refer to that when you are writing your works cited page. As with all of the many phases of this research paper, you should expect to hit a few dead ends today, but be persistent and creative, and you will eventually find some criticisms that you can use to strengthen the arguments that you will be making in your papers.